I was yours for the taking. Guess I needed a home, but if I'm not mistaken, you were good on your own. And I know.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are talking about no more numbing out. How do we feel our emotions, sit with our emotions, process our emotions so that one, we don't feel the need to numb out, and two, so that then our emotions can kind of guide us in the right direction of where we need to go. So let's start with numbing out. I titled this No More Numbing Out for a reason, and then we're gonna get into how we do this and why we do this in the first place. So numbing out to me means when we go ahead and find some sort of coping mechanism that's typically not the healthiest one, and we use it as a vice to numb out the emotions that we don't wanna feel because A, they're uncomfortable, they're hard, they're extremely painful sometimes, or we just don't want to feel them, or we don't know how to feel them. We're so disconnected from our bodies and minds, there's no connection going on, that it's really difficult to even identify when we need to sit with our emotions. So what are some of these vices? The big ones, obviously drugs, alcohol, smoking, vaping, social media now, scrolling can be used as numbing out and distraction, food, shopping, overspending, gossiping, anything that feels like it's being used in more of a habitual way to bypass some feelings. So I want to make sure that I say this because the world of numbing out versus addiction gets really messy and the lines get really blurred. So if there is something going on in your life where you feel like it's impacting your ability to live a healthy, functional life, or you just feel like something could be going on, I highly recommend that you seek, something at a higher level than a YouTube video. Now that we know some like ways that we numb out or some vices that a lot of us tend to grab onto at different seasons of our life, why do we do this? Ask yourself, why are we numbing out? What is going on with us? That's something that I can't answer for anyone except for my own self. It's very individualized. We can't just put a blanket reason on why people numb out. We all do it for different reasons, and we do it for different reasons throughout different seasons of our life. Allowing yourself to get curious is so underrated. It is one of the most powerful things to, when you notice these things about yourself and you're like, okay, I definitely, feel the need to binge drink or overeat or scroll through my phone to kind of numb out for a while. It's so underestimated to simply ask yourself, why is a big question. Obviously that's going to take some time to figure out why, but when do I do this? Is there a pattern? Is there a trigger that when I notice this or I feel this, I tend to go here? Like just that question alone and getting curious is so powerful. And it'll take time. Start to, get really curious about it. Take a log, journal, like, okay, every time I feel the impulse to, go ahead and just numb out and scroll through my phone for an hour, well, what happened? What's going on? Is there a certain time of day? Is there something that typically happens? Like really start to get curious about those patterns of your behavior. Now I'm gonna get into ways that we can work through this, but I wanna start with give yourself some compassion. You are numbing out for a reason. Typically it's a protective part of you that's coming up to try and protect you from emotions or things or experiences that you may not want to let your mind wander with. So you typically have something that you distract with instead. And you need to give yourself grace for that. There's a reason why these things happen. There's still seasons of my life where I totally numb out and I catch myself like, okay, why am I doing this? So one, for example, is spending money. I've noticed about myself, especially in the past, whenever I was having just a day where I felt so low, just my emotions, everything just felt low and no energy, I would find myself wanting to go shopping those days. And I started to get really, really curious about that. And there was a pattern. Every time I felt like a low, sad day, I hated that feeling. I hated the feeling of, feeling sad, that I would go and do something to try and make it better, which it never did. And now, years later, I still find myself doing this every now and again, but I at least can now catch it now and understand the thing that helps me now is it's okay to have a day where you're sad. You're allowed to feel sad. You can feel low for the day. You can feel low energy. Like take care of yourself even more on those days. Love on yourself even harder on those days. I think a big thing in our society is that we try and go from feeling really low and sad to right back up to happy. And I feel like when we strive to just be happy all the time, I feel like it's like counterintuitive, where now I, at least personally, I find that it's easier to strive for kind of like a neutral place, like a everyday mood being kind of neutral, not too high, not too low. And then if I am really high, amazing, let myself feel that joy and happiness. And if I'm feeling sad and low one day, feel sad and low one day. Like I find that when I strive to not go from, you know, one extreme to the other, and I kind of get to more of a neutral place, and a peaceful place is really what it is for me, that works best for me. So now let's get into ways that you can work through, you know, these impulses and these desires to numb out. So a lot of us are scared to feel our emotions because one, either it's really difficult to do that, or two, we're so disconnected from ourselves that we can't even really identify what's going on, that we've lost so much touch with our instincts and our gut and our mind-body connection that it's incredibly difficult for us to even process what's going on. The first thing I'm going to say to you to at least start to be more mindful of that, and I'm not going to tell you to go meditate for an hour, I'm not going to tell you to, you know, sit there for 30 minutes and not think anything. I don't believe that that's the easiest thing to do. But what I will say is that getting quiet really is important. It's really difficult for people sometimes, especially if you've been avoiding certain emotions or certain thoughts. It's really difficult to just all of a sudden like close your eyes and let that flood your mind for 10 minutes while you do a meditation. So, but getting quiet is also really important. There's a reason why meditation exists and why journaling exists and why getting in tune with yourself is so important. Quiet and sitting with your thoughts or journaling or starting to just kind of like quiet the noise outside of you feels like, I don't want to do that. I would recommend going for a walk without headphones, or, you know, getting outside in nature and just hearing the birds or the sounds. Like something like that is really powerful. It can be less intense than just sitting there and letting your mind fill with all the things you've been trying to avoid. After you've kind of gotten quiet and you can start to identify what you're feeling, right? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling low? Are you feeling depressed? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling, you know, worry? Are you feeling fear? Like what are you feeling? Once you can kind of get quiet enough to start to hear that, that's when we can get into how do we process this. A lot of times we don't want to feel fear. We don't want to feel anxiety. We don't want to feel anger. We don't want to feel scared or nervous, or we don't want to feel a lot of those negative emotions. But when we avoid them altogether, I have found personally that they last a lot longer. Whereas if you sit down with them, address them, and, you know, actually tackle it head on, the process of getting back to a more neutral or more joyful place tends to come a lot quicker instead of seasons of feeling all these emotions. I put on my like old, like when I was in school psych hat for a second. There is something really powerful too about processing the emotions as if they're a person. And like, okay, so bear with me for a second. But if you were to say, okay, so you're feeling sad, right? If you're not in like the counseling world, like if you're not from here, you're gonna be like, this girl's crazy, like she's lost her mind. But there's something really powerful about, okay, I feel sad. Okay, sadness, what are you telling me? Like pretend you're like talking. You can even pretend you're like talking to it. What are you trying to tell me? Like, why am I feeling this way? Do I just need to feel it? You just saying, hey, and I just need to feel sad for a second? Like, that sounds so crazy, but it's also really powerful if you can like let yourself be weird and like process like that. So if like anger comes in, right? And you're like, what's going on, anger? Like, what's, you know, what are you trying to tell me? Is there something going on? Is something I need to address? Why do I feel angry? Or are you just here to say, hey, and I'm just gonna feel angry for a minute and move along? Like, if you can allow yourself to be a total weirdo like me, it's a lot, you can move through it faster. We need to make a shift as humans to where we welcome all emotions, because I believe that when you welcome them and you know, identify and then process through all the emotions, they don't stay as long. They kind of pass through us and we're still in control. This is something that's a little more in depth, but it's really powerful and something that I think is so important. There's yourself, right? Your truest self, which is really hard to find if you're so disconnected from yourself. But you've got your truest self, and then you've got all these parts of you, and you've got all these emotions. And when you're your truest self, and when you're living within, you know, who you are and who you're meant to be, first of all, it takes a while to get there if you're not there, but two, it's possible. And when yourself is in control, you can then welcome all these different parts of you and all these different emotions, and you can let them pass through you, and then you can move along. And it's so much better than just living in seasons of being sad, or living in seasons of anger, or seasons of anxiety. Now listen, do not get this the wrong way. There are clinical levels to where people have these emotions going on. That's not what I'm talking about here. And that's where we need to be able to identify, okay, nope, mine's persistent, mine's often, mine's every day, mine's impairing my functioning. I need to go to a level higher, which I have done. Okay, so now that we've gotten quiet enough, we kind of have identified what the emotion is. We're trying to, you know, vibe with it and feel it out and see what's going on. This is where we can get into moving through it now. So once we can get in tune with ourselves enough to recognize what's going on, then we can work through it, then we can do something about it. Now, this is again going to be really personal to you, and it's going to change. So sometimes when I feel an emotion, for example, let's go with sadness. Let's go with feelings of feeling really low and really sad. There are some times where I call on different things to help me move through that. I'm not trying to avoid it. I'm not trying to numb it out. I'm not trying to pretend it doesn't exist. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm happy when I'm not. If I'm sad and I need to deal with that. Or I need to just let myself be sad. Period. We don't always need to, you know, oh my gosh, I gotta be happy. I feel sad. That's so crazy. Feel sad. Ourselves to do that. When I allow myself to just have a day to feel sad or feel low, it typically ends much faster. I typically have a day or I have a few hours where I, you know, watch a movie and I chill out and I just let myself feel really low. And then I move through it a lot faster. Let's go up a layer higher. Let's go up to where you have shut off your emotions for so long that it's going to be incredibly difficult to feel them. When you feel them now, it's going to be painful, excruciating, hard. Maybe you have, you know, and this is at a more clinical level. So if you think this might be you, I need you to go and seek help beyond, you know, YouTube videos and these types of resources. But if you feel like you have had, you know, memories that have been locked away and things that have kind of been in your subconscious that you've not allowed out, it's going to be so hard to deal with. That's why we numb out. People don't just numb out for no reason. We numb out because we're trying to avoid something and we're doing it. Our brain is saying, this is dangerous, 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 dangerous. I need to help you. Let's get away from that. Let's get away from that. Let's distract ourselves. Let's move away from it. You need to feel this out for yourself. If you notice things like this, for example, if I'm feeling really sad and really low, there are some times where I need to snuggle up with a blanket, like get the most plush, beautiful blanket. Okay, that's one thing, go ahead and buy. That's fine. Go and buy the most gorgeous blanket that you adore. And make it special, make it like a gift to yourself, you know, get like those really nice like knit ones and give that to yourself as a gift. And know that when you are feeling sad or scared or anxious or depressed, that is your, like, it sounds corny now, but like your little security blanket. That is what you're going to use, that you're going to put this over you, and whatever thoughts flood into your head, it's okay. We have to stop judging ourselves for feeling them. Have to feel out, can I do this alone? Can I process these emotions that I've been avoiding by myself? So for example, there are some times where I go under my little blanket and I can journal and I can just think, or I can just meditate and I can just process them alone. And then there are some times where I need to go grab that blanket. I love this idea. I don't know where it came from, but like the idea of just like snuggling in to feel these things just is so comforting to me. But there are some times where I can't do it alone. So I need to bring a friend under this blanket with me, or I need to call someone, or I need to go to therapy virtually, which I do, and I need to have my blanket over me. Like there's just something so comforting. What it really is that you can do this. You can process these emotions, whatever they are, whatever your traumas are, whatever your experiences are, you can do it. And let's stop judging ourselves for having these feelings. I don't think that people would go through so many seasons of, you know, anger, resentment, fear, worry if we just went straight to it and sat with it. Back to the blanket idea, I love it so much. Snuggling in and letting yourself feel pain. And I'm talking the pain sometimes where, you know, that pain like in the back of your throat, or that pain like in your chest where it literally feels like a hole's been punched through your chest. That's pain. That's what your mind is trying to avoid. Your body doesn't want you to experience that. But if we don't experience it, we're just gonna prolong it. We have to experience these things as humans so that we can work through it and move through it. But I'm gonna tell you to sit with it. That blanket is the idea of snuggling in, sitting with your stuff, sitting with your pain, sitting with all of your emotions and letting them come over you, and then we can go from there. That feels like the idea of like snuggling in and sitting with your emotions, or letting them kind of come into your mind and body, and feeling them like that all snuggled up sounds like, whoa, like not for me, do not want that, do not connect to that. There's another thing that I think is really powerful, is moving through our emotions physically. So going for a really long walk and kind of disconnecting, or getting so in tune with your body through yoga, stretching, meditation, or going and doing a really intense strength training class, or going to boxing or going swimming. Like, there is something really powerful about, okay, I identify that I'm feeling this way. I don't want to sit with it right now. I don't want to snuggle into it right now. So I'm going to go move through it. So for example, if I'm feeling really anxious, right? Let's go with anxiety. I'm feeling so anxious. I'm jittery. Something's up, like something is going on, but I'm not in the mood to go and snuggle into that, which is actually really funny because that's something that I don't do typically. When I'm anxious, I'm like, it's too much for me to quiet my mind, because I don't like to hear my heart beating. I don't like to, it's too much, overstimulating for me. So this is a great example. So when I'm feeling anxious, that's typically when I'm gonna go for the swim training class, or if I was to go for a walk or a hike, or, you know, something that is physical. Sometimes it is so powerful. Going through it physically, do not underestimate that. That is powerful as well. So if you're not in a place where you're like, I don't want to snuggle into that emotion, don't. Figure out what works for you. These are two examples, right? Snuggling in and feeling our stuff once we can identify what's going on. But know that this may change and you may do different things. And maybe you have an idea that you're like, I think this would be a really good way for me to process it without numbing out. Also, please comment down below what you do to kind of process through emotions. First of all, I'm always looking for new ideas, and I think it'd be awesome too that as we grow a community here, I would love for you all to see what each other does to kind of like, you know, work through these things that happen as collective humans. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.